There's a really strange story about how Donald Trump will just not stop talking about North Korean dictator Kim Jong Un to other world leaders. And the other world leaders are getting really weirded out by what Donald Trump is doing. You know how sometimes a 4-year-old will be obsessed with telling the same story over and over again to anyone they talk to? My blue Legos disappeared and I made a green castle and mommy gave me a cookie. Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, and just telling the same story over and over again. Trump has become the sort of adult, I'm not going to call it the adult version of that, but sort of the adult version of that. Trump reportedly going into the same weird monologue about how wonderful dictator Kim Jong Un is to any world leader that will listen. And we had the G7 last month, where according to 3 sources, there was a meeting with the world leaders, understandably, as there were, of course, many meetings. And the topic of North Korea actually came up during this meeting. And the context was, hey, North Korea has been firing short-range ballistic missiles into the Sea of Japan. And Trump interjects this tangential, wacky story about just how great Kim Jong Un is and how great Trump's relationship with Kim Jong Un is. He rambled for 10 minutes, reportedly, and the room of world leaders was invisibly stunned silence, according to 3 people that were in the room. Funny how often that happens, because yesterday we learned that at the G7, Trump walked into a meeting set to be with the Egyptian president and yelled, "Where's my favorite dictator?" also putting the room into this stunned silence. And here it is this time talking just so positively about another dictator, Kim Jong Un. Now, here is where it gets even weirder. Donald Trump has told this exact same story verbatim before. In Canada last year, Trump told this exact same story to the same group of world leaders minus Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson wasn't the British prime minister at the time, so it was a marginally different group. And it's this story about how, the little Rocket Man stuff got Kim Jong Un all wound up. And he mentions Elton John when he tells the story. I mean, it sounds like it would be a Saturday Night Live parody of what Trump says to world leaders, but it's a literal speech that Donald Trump has now been telling world leaders for multiple years. And the world leaders that see Trump up close are understandably horrified by his behavior. And that's terrible if you care about the image of the United States around the world. You don't have to be, a hyper-nationalist to just care if the country you live in is perceived as being headed up by a clueless clown. And no offense to clowns, of course, but it's a totally respectable job. But it is something that you can care about merely because you care about the image of the country you live in. Now, there's a silver lining here. Trump really likes Kim Jong Un, and he's not just saying it. In other words, Trump lies so often that when we get what seems to be corroboration about something Donald Trump thinks, in this case that he likes Kim Jong Un, there's this tiny silver lining in that we found out Trump actually told the truth about something. The trend is that when Trump is being honest, he often is saying that he likes a dictator. One of the things Donald Trump in his presidency has been most honest about, one area where we can believe him, is when he's talking about a dictator or an authoritarian strongman in glowing terms. That seems to actually be just honest Donald Trump. And the problem, of course, is that he's so easy to manipulate. North Korea's Kim family has been trying to control American presidents for decades, but normally the American presidents and the people around them have the diplomatic sense not to allow these propaganda meetings with no preconditions, because they know they're only good for North Korea. They're only good for the propaganda that North Korea will then generate from these meetings, and we get nothing. And much like Trump's been played by the Russians before, he's getting played by Kim Jong Un, and it's working to such a degree that in private, he's just glowing about just how terrific Kim Jong Un is. Now, on Friday, we are going to deal with the question, when should a president meet versus not meet or negotiate with different people? It's an important topic, and it relates to Trump and North Korea. We can't just criticize Trump. We need to lay out a framework for when does dialogue make sense and when is dialogue, or at least dialogue without preconditions, not the right thing. I will deal with that on the Friday show in audience questions.